In my hands was a classified file that could destroy dozens of careers and bring down the billion-dollar company where I worked. I wasn't supposed to open it. I wasn't supposed to hit send. But once the truth stared back at me from that screen, I knew there was no turning back. What happened next? The entire corporate world as I knew it exploded in ways I never imagined possible. This is how I brought them all down. My name is Claire Donovan, and until 3 weeks ago, I thought I understood how the corporate world worked. 32 years old, 5 years into my role as a senior HR specialist at Redwood Dynamics in Denver. I'd seen enough to know that fairness was a luxury most companies couldn't afford, but nothing prepared me for what I discovered on that humid Tuesday afternoon in July 2025. The office was nearly empty. Most people were working from home that day, part of our hybrid schedule that management loved to tout as progressive, while secretly tracking every keystroke from our remote sessions. I was in the office, buried in quarterly compliance reports. When an encrypted folder appeared in my shared drive, it wasn't meant for me. The sender had mistyped one character in the email address, sending it to C. Donovan instead of C. Donovan, our CFO's assistant. My finger hovered over the delete button. I should have clicked it, should have pretended I never saw it. But the subject line burned into my retina. Confidential, August 2025, Reduction Force Planning, Final List. The modern American workplace in 2025 had become a pressure cooker. We'd survived the Great Resignation, the AI disruption, the remote work wars. Those of us still standing had learned to work twice as hard for the same pay. Grateful just to have health insurance and a 401k that lost money slower than inflation ate it away. At Redwood Dynamics, a mid-tier tech company specializing in cloud infrastructure, we wore our exhaustion like badges of honor. 60-hour weeks were standard. Weekend emails were expected. Your value was measured in how much blood you were willing to leave on the conference room floor. I opened the file. 143 names stared back at me. Good people, hard workers, some with families, mortgages, kids starting college. The list was organized by department, with projected cost savings next to each name, like price tags on cattle. My stomach turned when I saw the termination date, August 15, 2025, 3 weeks away. The annotations were the worst part. Next to each name were notes: high salary, replaced with junior. Good performer, but not essential. Health issues, high insurance cost. That last one made me close my laptop so hard the sound echoed through the empty office. I knew these people: Rachel from marketing, who just bought her first house, James from engineering, whose wife was battling cancer, Sandra from sales, 2 years from retirement. They were all there, marked for deletion like redundant code. The downtown Denver heat pressed against the floor-to-ceiling windows of our supposedly eco-friendly building, 20 floors up. I watched the city shimmer in the afternoon haze, feeling like I was suffocating despite the aggressive air conditioning. This wasn't just about numbers on a spreadsheet. This was about the new reality of corporate America, where loyalty meant nothing, where decades of service could be erased with a keystroke, where the gap between the executives' bonuses and workers' anxiety grew wider every quarter. My hands shook as I copied the file to my personal drive. I told myself I was just creating evidence, just protecting myself. But deep down, I knew I was holding a bomb. The question was whether I had the courage to light the fuse. The elevator dinged, and I quickly closed everything, my heart pounding. Mark Hollister, our VP of Operations, walked past my cubicle without acknowledging me. Same as always. To him, I was just another cog in the machine he was about to dismantle. He had no idea that his perfectly orchestrated plan had just landed in the worst possible hands, someone with nothing left to lose and everything to prove. That night, I lay awake staring at my laptop on the nightstand, the file burning inside it like a digital flame. I knew I should delete it, report the error, pretend I'd never seen it. That's what a good employee would do. But after 5 years of watching good people get crushed by corporate greed, I was done being good. I was ready to be dangerous. The toxic culture at Redwood Dynamics didn't happen overnight. It metastasized slowly, like cancer cells multiplying in the dark. When I first joined in 2020, Fresh from my MBA, the company still pretended to care about its people. We had mentorship programs, actual lunch breaks, managers who knew your name. By 2025, all that remained were motivational posters peeling off the walls and mandatory fun events that felt like hostage situations. Mark Hollister had arrived 2 years ago like a corporate vampire, brought in to optimize operations. Within 6 months, he'd gutted middle management, outsourced customer service, and introduced a performance ranking system that pitted employees against each other like gladiators. The weak were culled quarterly. The strong learned to sleep with one eye open. I watched him operate from my HR perch, documenting every casual cruelty. The way he'd schedule meetings at 6 p.m. on Fridays, then mark people down for lack of commitment if they couldn't attend. How he'd publicly humiliate junior employees in all-hands meetings, calling it radical candor. The time he told a pregnant colleague that motherhood was a choice that had consequences for career trajectory. But Mark was smart. He delivered results, at least on paper. Costs down 30%. Productivity up 45%. The board loved him. The stock price loved him. Everyone who actually did the work despised him. But fear kept us silent. The real artists of survival were the sycophants, like Derek from business development, who laughed at Mark's jokes like they were actually funny, who stayed late not to work, but to be seen working. Or Jennifer from finance, who'd thrown 3 colleagues under the bus last quarter and got promoted for her leadership during challenging transitions. These were the people who thrived while the genuine talent suffocated. Rachel found me in the break room that Wednesday, stress etched into every line of her face. "Claire, have you heard anything?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "People are saying there's going to be another round of layoffs." I forced my expression neutral, the lie burning my throat. Nothing official. "I can't go through this again," she said, stirring her coffee with a plastic spoon that shook in her hand. "Remember 2023? They made us reapply for our own jobs. I was one of the lucky ones. But watching my team get decimated, I still have nightmares." Rachel was everything right about corporate America. Brilliant, dedicated, innovative. She'd launched 3 successful campaigns that had saved the company millions. But she was also expensive, experienced enough to know her worth, and unafraid to push back on stupid ideas. In Mark's world, that made her a liability. Then there was Ethan. My ex? The wound that wouldn't heal. We'd dated for 2 years, back when we both believed in the company's mission. Back when we thought hard work and integrity meant something. He was in product development then, passionate about creating solutions that actually helped people. We'd spend weekends hiking in the Rockies, planning our future, believing we could build something meaningful together, both in life and at work. The breakup came when he got his first promotion. Suddenly, he was attending Mark's strategic dinners, speaking in corporate buzzwords, defending policies he'd once railed against. The night he told me that, sometimes you have to make tough choices for the greater good while justifying laying off his own team members, I knew we were done. Now he was Senior Director of Innovation, Mark's golden boy, probably safe from any list. I'd see him in the hallways sometimes, his smile a little too bright, his laugh a little too forced. He'd traded his soul for a corner office and a 6-figure bonus. The Ethan I'd loved was gone, replaced by a corporate automaton who probably helped compile the very list I now possessed. The injustice of it all made my chest tight with rage. Good people, talented people, people who'd sacrificed everything for this company were about to be discarded like obsolete equipment. Meanwhile, the parasites who'd learned to play the game would continue to feast on the corpse of what Redwood Dynamics used to be. That Thursday, Mark called an all-hands meeting. He stood at the podium, his $3,000 suit impeccable, his smile practiced, talking about exciting opportunities for transformation and right-sizing for competitive advantage. I watched my colleagues' faces, the fear poorly hidden behind professional masks, the way they gripped their phones like life preservers, already updating their LinkedIn profiles in their minds. "Remember," Mark said, his voice carrying that false warmth he'd perfected. "We're not just a company. We're a family, and families make sacrifices for each other. The hypocrisy was suffocating. His salary could pay for 10 of the positions on that list. His last bonus could have saved entire departments. But sacrifice was for the peasants, not the kings. That night, I opened the file again, studying each name, each devastating note. The anger that had been simmering for years finally reached its boiling point. They wanted to play dirty. They wanted to destroy lives for quarterly earnings. Fine, but I wasn't going to let them do it in the dark. Friday night. 3 days of carrying that secret had left me hollow, sleepless, wired on coffee and rage. I sat in my Capitol Hill apartment, laptop open, cursor blinking on the anonymous forum I'd found, Tech Leaks, a whistleblower site that had exposed everything from wage theft to sexual harassment across Silicon Valley and beyond. My hands trembled as I created a throwaway account, Truth Teller 2025. Original? No. But I wasn't trying to be clever, I was trying to be invisible. The upload button seemed to pulse on the screen. One click, and everything would change. No going back. No more pretending to be the good soldier, the reliable HR drone who kept her mouth shut and her head down. I thought about Rachel's mortgage, James's medical bills, Sandra's retirement dreams evaporating. Then I thought about Mark's Tesla in the executive parking garage, his Aspen ski house, his kids' private schools paid for with bonuses earned by destroying lives. I clicked upload. The file transferred in seconds. 143 names, their positions, salaries, and those grotesque annotations. I added a message. Redwood Dynamics plans to terminate these employees on August 15, 2025. While executives take home million-dollar bonuses, loyal workers who built this company are being discarded to boost stock prices. The public deserves to know. The employees deserve to know. This is corporate America in 2025. Profits over people, every single time. For 10 minutes, nothing happened. The post sat there, 0 views, 0 comments. I almost laughed at my own anticlimactic revenge. Then I refreshed the page. 17 views, 43, 100 and climbing. The first comment appeared. Holy shit, is this real? Then another. I work at Redwood. This explains why my manager has been acting weird all week. My phone buzzed. Rachel calling. I let it go to voicemail. By midnight, the post had over 10,000 views. Someone had screenshotted it and shared it on Twitter. LinkedIn was buzzing. Local Denver tech blogs picked it up. The snowball was rolling down the mountain, gaining mass and speed. I couldn't sleep. I sat in the dark, refreshing page after page, watching my bomb explode in slow motion across the internet. The guilt hit in waves. What if I'd just destroyed innocent careers along with the guilty? But then I'd read another comment from a Redwood employee finding their name on the list. Their shock and devastation pouring through the screen. And I knew I'd done the right thing. Saturday morning came like a hammer to the skull. My work phone, the one I'd foolishly forgotten to turn off, erupted with notifications, emails, Slack messages, missed calls. The subject lines alone told the story. Urgent, all hands emergency meeting. Confidential, security breach protocol activated. Mandatory, report to office immediately. I turned it off and threw it in a drawer. My personal phone was worse. Rachel had called 15 times. Text messages flooded in from colleagues. Claire, did you see this? Is the list real? I'm on it. I'm on the fucking list. They can't do this, can they? I wanted to respond, to comfort them. But I couldn't risk it. Any digital trail could lead back to me. So I sat in my apartment, blinds drawn, watching the chaos unfold online like a disaster movie I'd directed but couldn't stop. By noon, local news had picked it up. Major Denver tech company faces leaked layoff scandal. Reporters were calling Redwood for comment. The company's Twitter account was being bombarded with angry messages. Someone had organized a protest for Monday morning. The Redwood Dynamics subreddit. Yes, we were big enough to have our own subreddit, had exploded. Employees were sharing their stories, their fears, their rage. Someone posted Mark's salary information from public filings, $3.2 million last year, not counting bonuses. The contrast with the $4.7 million the layoffs would supposedly save was not lost on anyone. Then came the internal email I'd been expecting, forwarded to me by 12 different people. Team. We are aware of the illegally distributed document circulating online. This document is unverified and does not represent official company planning. Any employee found sharing or discussing this document will face immediate disciplinary action, up to and including termination. We are working with law enforcement and cybersecurity experts to identify the source of this criminal breach. The responsible party will be prosecuted to the fullest extent of the law. Please continue with your normal duties. We will update you as the situation develops. Mark Hollister, VP of Operations, Criminal. They were calling me a criminal for exposing their crimes against human dignity. The adrenaline was wearing off, replaced by a creeping paranoia. Every car that passed my apartment seemed suspicious. Every notification made my heart race. I'd lit the fuse, and now I was standing in the blast radius, waiting to see if I'd survive the explosion. Sunday brought no relief. The story had gone national. TechCrunch, The Verge, even the Wall Street Journal had picked it up. Redwood's stock price futures were trending down. The board had called an emergency meeting. I ventured out once, hoodie pulled low, to grab supplies from the corner store. The guy behind the counter was reading about it on his phone. These corporate assholes, he muttered to himself. They all deserve what's coming. If only he knew he was selling overpriced energy drinks to the person who'd pulled the trigger. Back in my apartment, I stared at my reflection in the black screen of my laptop. I didn't recognize the person looking back. 3 days ago, I was Claire Donovan, reliable HR specialist, keeper of secrets, maintainer of order. Now I was something else. A whistleblower. A traitor. A hero. A criminal. Maybe all of them at once. Tomorrow was Monday. Tomorrow I'd have to walk into that office, sit at my desk, and pretend I didn't know why the world was burning down around us. Tomorrow, the real game would begin. Monday morning arrived like an execution day. The Redwood Dynamics building was surrounded by news vans, protesters with hastily made signs reading, "People over profits," and "Corporate greed kills." Security guards, 3 times the usual number, checked badges with paranoid intensity. Inside, the atmosphere was radioactive. Conversations died when managers passed. Everyone eyed everyone else with suspicion. Who was the leaker? Who could be trusted? Who was next? The 20th floor had been transformed into a war room. IT specialists hunted through server logs. External consultants from a crisis management firm huddled with executives. 2 men in dark suits who screamed "corporate lawyers" stalked the hallways like predators. I kept my head down, played my part, shocked expression, check, worried whispers with colleagues, check, refresh my email every 30 seconds like everyone else, check. Inside, my heart hammered so hard I was sure everyone could hear it. The all-hands meeting at 10 a.m. was mandatory. The main conference room was packed, with overflow watching from their desks via video link. Mark stood at the front, flanked by the CEO, Patricia Williams, and the head of security I'd never seen before, a woman with cold eyes who scanned the crowd like she could identify guilt by sight. "Let me be clear," Patricia began, her usually polished voice cracking with barely controlled fury. "What happened this weekend was not just a breach of trust. It was corporate espionage. It was theft. And we will find who did this." Mark took over. His jaw clenched so tight I could see the muscles twitching. "Our forensic IT team has narrowed down the source. The leak came from inside this building, from someone with HR access credentials. We're reviewing every keystroke, every file access, every digital footprint from the last 2 weeks." My blood turned to ice. HR access credentials. They knew it was someone from my department. 23 people, and I was one of them. Furthermore, Mark continued, federal investigators are now involved. The FBI takes corporate espionage very seriously. Whoever did this isn't just looking at termination. They're looking at federal prison. Prison, the word echoed in my skull. I hadn't thought that far ahead, too caught up in righteous anger to consider the full consequences. After the meeting, our department was pulled into a separate room. One by one, we were called for interviews. I watched colleagues emerge pale, shaken, some in tears. When my turn came, I'd rehearsed my story 100 times. The security woman, who introduced herself as Diana Morrison, sat across from me with a laptop and a poker face that revealed nothing. Ms. Donovan, where were you last Friday evening? Home, watching Netflix. You can check my viewing history. Did you access any company files over the weekend? No, I try to maintain work-life balance. The lie came out smooth. Practiced? Have you noticed any unusual behavior from your colleagues? Everyone's been on edge with the rumors about layoffs, but nothing specific. She stared at me for a long moment, and I forced myself to maintain eye contact. Looking away would be suspicious, but holding her gaze felt like staring down a snake. You've been with the company 5 years. Any grievances, passed over for promotions, conflicts with management? Yes, and yes. No more than anyone else. It's a challenging environment, but I'm committed to my role. After 40 minutes of questions, she dismissed me. I made it to the bathroom before my legs gave out, sitting in a stall trying not to hyperventilate. That afternoon, Rachel found me in the supply closet where I'd gone to calm down. Her eyes were red, puffy from crying. It's true, isn't it? She whispered. The list. I'm on it. I wanted to lie, but looking at her broken expression, I couldn't. I just nodded. 20 years, she said, voice cracking. 20 years I've given them. I missed my daughter's recitals for quarterly reports, lost my marriage to weekend work. And for what? To be thrown away like garbage? She grabbed my hands, squeezing tight. Whoever leaked that list, they're a hero. We deserve to know. We deserve time to prepare. If only she knew she was holding the hands of her hero, the hands that might soon be in handcuffs. By Wednesday, the investigation had intensified. They'd installed monitoring software on all HR computers. 2 people from my department had been placed on administrative leave pending investigation. The FBI had set up in a conference room, interviewing everyone who'd had access to the system. The media attention hadn't died down. If anything, it had intensified. Former employees were coming forward with their own horror stories. A class action lawsuit was being organized. Redwood's stock had dropped 12%. Then Thursday brought a new development. An email from Ethan. We need to talk. Meet me at the parking garage, level B3, 7 p.m. Come alone. It's about the leak. My blood froze. Did he know? Was this a trap? But I went, because running would look worse. The parking garage was nearly empty, shadows stretching between concrete pillars. Ethan stood by his BMW, the same car we'd once driven to the mountains, back when we were different people. I know you hate me, he started, not meeting my eyes. And you have every right to, but I'm trying to help you. Help me with what? They're closing in, Claire. The digital forensics team found something. They know the file was accessed from a specific workstation at 3:47 p.m. last Tuesday. They're pulling security footage tomorrow. My workstation. That exact time, they had me. Why are you telling me this? He finally looked at me, and for a moment, I saw the man I used to love. Because what they're doing is wrong. What I've become is wrong. And because despite everything, I don't want to see you destroyed for doing the right thing. I don't know what you're talking about. Stop. He held up his hand. We both know. Just be careful. They're not just looking for someone to fire. Mark wants blood. He wants to make an example that will terrify anyone else who might think about crossing him. He started to walk away, then turned back. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. For everything. For choosing them over us. For becoming someone you couldn't love. For being too much of a coward to do what you did. As his BMW disappeared into the Denver night, I stood in that empty garage, reality crashing down. They knew. Tomorrow, they'd have proof. I had maybe 12 hours before my world imploded, time to go on offense. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat in my dark apartment, laptop closed, phone turned off, waiting for the knock on the door that never came. By 5 a.m., I understood Mark's game. He wasn't going to have me arrested quietly. He was going to make it a spectacle. A public execution to terrorize anyone else who might dare challenge him. Friday morning, I arrived at the office early, before the security footage review that would seal my fate. The building was quieter than usual. Half the staff was working from home, which really meant updating their resumes and networking frantically. At 9 a.m. sharp, Diana Morrison appeared at my desk with 2 security guards. "Ms. Donovan, please come with us." Every head in the department turned. The walk to the executive conference room felt like a death march. My colleagues' eyes following me with a mixture of sympathy and relief that it wasn't them. Mark was waiting, along with Patricia Williams, the head of legal, and 2 FBI agents. The security footage was paused on a screen, a grainy image of me at my desk. Timestamp clearly visible, Tuesday, 3:47 p.m. "Sit," Mark commanded, his voice dripping with satisfaction. I sat. "We know it was you," he said simply. "The digital trail, the security footage, the access logs, everything points to you. This is your one chance to confess, to cooperate, to perhaps avoid the maximum federal sentence for corporate espionage." I looked him straight in the eye. "I want a lawyer." His face flushed red. "You think this is a game? You've destroyed shareholder value, violated federal law, betrayed every principle of corporate confidentiality. And you've destroyed lives," I interrupted, surprising myself with my steady voice. 143 lives, to be exact, while taking home millions in bonuses. "That's business," Patricia interjected coldly. "Legal business. What you did was criminal." The FBI agents remained silent, watching, taking notes. Mark leaned forward. "Here's what's going to happen. You're going to be arrested, very publicly. Your face will be in every tech publication as the cautionary tale of what happens when employees think they're above the law. Your career is over, your freedom is over, and for what? Those people were getting laid off anyway." "At least they had time to prepare," I shot back. "To look for jobs, to tell their families, to plan. You were going to ambush them, destroy them without warning for your stock price." "Touching," Mark sneered. "I'm sure that speech will comfort you in federal prison." One of the FBI agents finally spoke. "Ms. Donovan, you're being placed under arrest for violation of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act and theft of trade secrets. You have the right to remain silent." As they read me my rights, Mark's phone buzzed, then Patricia's, then repeatedly, urgently. Mark glanced at his screen, and his smug expression faltered. "What the hell?" Patricia was already pulling up something on her laptop, her face draining of color. "Mark, we have a problem." On the screen was an article from the Wall Street Journal, published minutes ago. Exclusive. Leaked emails. Show Redwood Dynamics. Executives planned layoffs to manipulate stock for personal gain. My heart stopped. I hadn't leaked anything else. This was something new. Patricia read aloud, her voice shaking. Internal emails obtained by the WSJ show VP of Operations Mark Hollister discussing plans to time layoff announcements to coincide with his personal stock trades, potentially violating SEC regulations. Mark grabbed the laptop, scrolling frantically. "This is impossible. These emails were encrypted. Private." "Someone else is leaking," Diana Morrison said quietly. "Someone with executive access." The room erupted in chaos. Patricia was on the phone with legal. Mark was screaming at Diana about security protocols. The FBI agents were conferring, suddenly more interested in the laptop than in me. Then my phone, which they'd confiscated, lit up with a text from an unknown number. "You're not alone. The resistance is bigger than you think. Sit tight. A friend." Mark saw it too. his face contorting with rage. It's a conspiracy, a coordinated attack. He turned to the FBI agents. This is corporate terrorism. You need to. Mr. Hollister. One agent interrupted. We're going to need to see your personal trading records and your emails, all of them. The blood drained from Mark's face. You can't. I want my lawyer. Funny, I said, unable to resist. That's what I said 10 minutes ago. Mark lunged toward me, but security held him back. You did this. You orchestrated this whole thing. I leaked one list, I said calmly. Apparently, I'm not the only one sick of your shit. More phones were buzzing. The leak had spawned leaks. Someone had released salary data showing executive compensation had increased 400% while regular employees' wages had stayed flat. Another person had leaked emails about cutting health benefits. The dam hadn't just broken, it had exploded. Diana Morrison was on her phone, her professional composure finally cracking. Sir, we have a situation. Multiple employees are posting internal documents on social media. It's like they were waiting for a signal. They had been. My leak hadn't just exposed the layoff list. It had given courage to every abused, overworked, underpaid employee who'd been too afraid to speak up. The revolution I'd started accidentally was now purposeful, coordinated, unstoppable. Patricia Williams stood up, her CEO authority evaporating. Everyone stop, just stop, we need to contain this. Contain it? I laughed, actually laughed. You can't contain this. You created this. Years of treating people like disposable resources, of squeezing every drop of life out of them for quarterly earnings. You think you can arrest me and this ends? Look around. Your empire is burning, and I'm just the one who lit the first match. The FBI agents were reassessing, making calls to superiors. SEC violations were potentially bigger than my corporate espionage charge. Mark was sweating through his expensive suit, calculating his exposure, probably wondering which offshore account might offer him refuge. Then Ethan walked in, which shouldn't have been possible. This was an executive-only floor, a closed meeting. I invited him, said a voice from behind. Rachel entered, followed by 2 other HR colleagues, 3 people from legal, 5 from engineering, all people from the layoff list, all people who'd apparently been part of something bigger than I'd realized. You thought you found your scapegoat, Rachel said, looking directly at Mark. But Claire was just the catalyst. We've been collecting evidence for months. Wage theft, OSHA violations, discriminatory firing practices, and now SEC violations. Claire gave us the courage to use it. Mark's phone rang. He answered automatically, his face growing paler with each word. He hung up, looking like he'd aged 10 years in 10 seconds. The board just called an emergency meeting, he whispered. Trading's been halted. The SEC is opening a formal investigation. He turned to me, his empire crumbling around him, his perfect corporate facade finally cracking. You've destroyed everything. No, I said, standing despite the handcuffs. You destroyed everything. I just made sure everyone could see it. The FBI agents uncuffed me after a tense phone call with their superiors. The SEC violations took precedence, and suddenly I wasn't the criminal. I was a potential witness. Mark, however, was escorted out for questioning, his face a mask of barely contained panic. Over the weekend, I became the unofficial general of an accidental army. My apartment transformed into a war room where Rachel, myself, and a growing network of Redwood insurgents coordinated our assault. We weren't just defending anymore, we were attacking. I've got 7 years of emails showing Mark's insider trading patterns, said Tom from accounting. A quiet man I'd barely noticed before. Every time he scheduled layoffs, he'd short the stock 2 weeks prior, then buy after the dip. I have recordings, added Jennifer from legal, not the sycophant I'd thought, but a double agent who'd been playing the game while documenting everything. Mark discussing with external contractors how to misclassify employees to avoid paying benefits. It's wire fraud. Potentially RICO if we can prove the pattern. The scope of what we'd uncovered was staggering. This wasn't just about one layoff list. It was systematic corporate corruption going back years. and Mark was just middle management in a larger machine of greed. By Sunday night, we had a shared drive with over 10,000 documents, contracts showing kickbacks, emails discussing how to fire employees just before their stock options vested, a PowerPoint presentation literally titled, Maximizing Workforce Reduction for Stock Manipulation. "We need to be strategic," Rachel said, her marketing brilliance now weaponized for justice. "We can't just dump everything at once. We need to control the narrative, release information in waves that build pressure." I studied the evidence, my HR knowledge finally useful for something meaningful. We start with the human stories. The cancer patient fired for performance issues 3 days before his long-term disability kicked in. The pregnant woman moved to night shift until she voluntarily resigned. Make it personal, make it relatable. Monday morning, we launched Phase 1, a website, redwoodtruth.com. Clean, professional, devastating, employee testimonials, documents, a timeline of corporate abuse. We'd sent the link to every major news outlet, every tech blogger, every labor organization in the country. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Redwood Revolt started trending. Former employees emerged from the shadows with their own stories. Current employees began walking out. By noon, the Denver office was half empty. Mark, out on bail, made the mistake of going on CNBC to defend himself. He looked haggard, desperate, nothing like the polished executive who'd terrorized us for years. "This is a coordinated attack by disgruntled employees," he insisted. "We've always operated within legal boundaries." That's when we released the second wave. The video Jennifer had secretly recorded of Mark explicitly discussing how to avoid legal boundaries. His own words, clear as day. "Legal doesn't matter if they can't prove it. These people can't afford lawyers anyway." The interview ended abruptly. Tuesday brought allies I hadn't expected. A senior developer named James, who I'd assumed was loyal to management, revealed he'd been building a case for a year. "My team has been tracking every instance of wage theft through forced unpaid overtime. We're talking millions in stolen wages." Even some middle managers joined us, tired of being squeezed between executive greed and employee suffering. They brought organizational charts showing phantom departments used to inflate costs, offshore accounts hiding profits, tax evasion schemes that would make the IRS salivate. Wednesday, Patricia Williams tried damage control with an all-hands meeting, except there were no hands left. The office was a ghost town. She spoke to empty chairs and a handful of security guards, her words echoing in the hollow space where a company used to exist. We watched the live stream from a coffee shop downtown, our laptops spread across 3 tables. Someone had ordered a cake with corporate justice written in frosting. It tasted like victory. "She's blaming everything on Mark," Ethan observed, sitting beside me for the first time in 2 years. Classic corporate move, sacrifice the lieutenant to save the general. "Then we release Phase 3, I said, pulling up Patricia's emails. Her instructions to Mark, her approval of every illegal scheme, her offshore accounts in the Caymans. Ethan looked at me with something like awe. "When did you become this person? This strategic, ruthless?" "When they tried to destroy people I care about," I interrupted. "When they thought we were too weak, too scared, too dependent on our paychecks to fight back." Thursday's news cycle was brutal. CNN ran a segment titled The Redwood Implosion, a case study in corporate greed. The stock had lost 60% of its value. 3 board members had resigned. The FBI had expanded their investigation to include the entire C-suite, but the real victory came Thursday night. An email to all staff from the board of directors. Effective immediately. Patricia Williams has resigned as CEO. Mark Hollister has been terminated for cause. The August reduction in force has been canceled. An independent investigation will be conducted into all executive practices over the past 5 years. We'd won. Or at least, we'd won this battle. Friday, I stood in the empty Redwood Dynamics lobby, looking at the motivational posters still clinging to the walls. "Excellence through innovation. Teamwork makes the dream work. Integrity in all things. Rachel stood beside me. What now? Now we make sure this never happens again, I said. We've proven that employees have power when we stand together. That information is a weapon. That corporate titans aren't invincible. They're just bullies who've never been punched back. You know they'll come after you legally, she warned. Even if the FBI doesn't prosecute, civil suits, defamation claims. Let them come, I said, surprising myself with my calm. We have the truth. We have the evidence. And now, we have each other. As we walked out into the Denver sunshine, my phone buzzed with messages from employees at other companies. They'd seen what we'd done. They wanted to know how to organize, how to fight back, how to stand up to their own corporate tyrants. The revolution wasn't ending, it was spreading, and I was ready to teach them everything I'd learned about bringing down giants. Saturday morning, I woke to find Mark Hollister had gone on the offensive. His lawyers had filed a defamation suit against me personally, $50 million in damages. But more concerning was the news Rachel brought to my apartment. He's not done, she said, showing me her phone. He's formed a crisis management team. They're planning to destroy you. Claire, make you the villain, him the victim of a vengeful employee conspiracy. The documentation she'd intercepted was chilling. Character assassination plans. Fabricated evidence of my supposed mental instability. Even attempts to plant drugs in my apartment to discredit me. Mark still had resources, still had connections, and he was going to use every one of them. Then we end this, I said, completely. Sunday was preparation. Our network had grown to over 50 active participants, each with their own piece of the puzzle. We divided into teams: legal, gathering evidence of Mark's current criminal activities; technical, tracing his hidden assets; media, preparing for the final revelation. Tom from accounting made the breakthrough. I found it, the smoking gun. Mark's been running a parallel consulting company, billing Redwood for fake services. $20 million over 3 years, funneled directly to his personal accounts. That's embezzlement, Jennifer said, her legal mind racing. Federal crime, no statute of limitations on amounts this large. Monday morning, Mark made his move. A press conference, perfectly staged. He stood before cameras in a modest suit, not his usual $3,000 attire, looking every inch the persecuted executive. I've been the victim of a witch hunt, he began, his voice carefully modulated for sympathy. Disgruntled employees, led by Claire Donovan, conspired to destroy me because I had to make hard decisions for the company's survival. He produced documents, forged but convincing. Emails supposedly from me discussing taking down management. A psychiatric evaluation claiming I had antisocial tendencies. Even a fake witness who claimed I'd threatened violence. For a moment, watching the live stream, I felt the walls closing in. He was too good at this, too practiced in manipulation. Then Ethan stood up. It's time. We launched our counterstrike from an unexpected direction, not through media or leaks, but through the SEC's official whistleblower program. Everything we'd gathered, every document, every recording, submitted formally with a team of pro bono lawyers who'd materialized to support us. But the masterstroke was the live stream we started during Mark's press conference. This is Claire Donovan, I said, looking directly into the camera. And I'm about to show you exactly who Mark Hollister really is. Screen share, bank records, the parallel company, the embezzlement trail so clear a child could follow it. But more than that, recordings Jennifer had made of Mark during what he thought were private strategy sessions. We need to destroy her completely, his recorded voice said. Plant whatever evidence we need. Pay off whoever we have to. I don't care if we have to ruin her life. She dies professionally and personally. Then another recording from just days ago. The board are idiots. The FBI are incompetent. Once I discredit Donovan, I'll sue Redwood for wrongful termination and walk away with millions. The chat exploded. Viewers climbed from hundreds to thousands to tens of thousands. News outlets picking up the stream. Mark, Hollister lies trending within minutes. But I wasn't done. Mr. Hollister claims I'm mentally unstable. Here's my actual psychiatric evaluation from last year. Perfect mental health. He claims I threatened violence. Here are the time-stamped security logs showing I was in a different state when this supposed threat occurred. Rachel took over, her marketing expertise shining. We're not just exposing Mark Hollister. We're exposing a system. A culture where executives believe they're untouchable, where workers are expendable, where lies are currency and truth is a liability. The final blow came from an unexpected source, Mark's own assistant, who'd been quietly documenting his crimes for 2 years, went live on our stream. I have recordings of Mr. Hollister discussing how to manipulate stock prices, she said, voice steady despite visible trembling. How to bribe board members, how to blackmail employees who knew too much. I've already provided everything to the FBI. Mark's press conference descended into chaos. Reporters abandoning his narrative to shout questions about our stream. His lawyers trying to shut down cameras. Mark himself standing frozen, watching his carefully constructed lies crumble in real time on the phone someone shoved in his face. Then the FBI arrived. Not for me, for him. Live on camera. They arrested Mark Hollister for embezzlement, wire fraud, and conspiracy. The look on his face as they cuffed him, shock, rage, and finally, defeat, was broadcast to millions. But I wasn't celebrating, not yet. This isn't just about Mark, I said to the camera. He's a symptom. How many other Mark Hollisters are out there? How many other companies operate like Redwood did? This isn't over. This is just the beginning. Within hours, employees from Amazon, Google, Meta, and dozens of other companies were reaching out. They had their own stories, their own evidence, their own Mark Hollisters to expose. Tuesday's news was dominated by what they called the Redwood Revolution. 3 more executives at other companies had been arrested based on employee whistleblowing. The SEC announced a massive investigation into corporate malfeasance across the tech sector. Wednesday, I met with the federal prosecutor. They offered me immunity in exchange for testimony. I accepted, but with conditions. Immunity for everyone in our network who'd helped expose the truth. You understand, the prosecutor said. You've essentially declared war on corporate America. No, I corrected. Corporate America declared war on workers. We're just fighting back. Thursday brought an unexpected visitor, Patricia Williams. The former CEO looked older, defeated, sitting across from me in the coffee shop where we'd planned our revolution. You destroyed everything, she said quietly. Everything needed destroying, I replied. She studied me for a long moment. Mark was always a liability, but you were supposed to be one of the good soldiers. Quiet, compliant, safe. That's what you counted on, I said. That we'd all be too scared to speak up, too dependent to fight back, too isolated to organize. And now? Now you know better. She left without another word, but I saw something in her eyes. Not just defeat, but fear. Fear that what happened at Redwood could happen anywhere. Fear that the power dynamic had fundamentally shifted. Friday arrived with news that would have seemed impossible just weeks ago. The board of directors, what was left of them, announced massive reforms, full severance for anyone on the layoff list, clawback of executive bonuses, an employee representative on the board. It wasn't everything, but it was a start. That night, our network gathered at a bar in downtown Denver. Not to celebrate, there was too much work left to do, but to mark this moment. We'd taken on a corporate giant and won. We'd proven that truth, solidarity, and courage could triumph over greed, lies, and intimidation. So what's next? Someone asked. I raised my glass, looking at these brave people who'd risked everything for justice. Next, we teach others how to do what we did. We build networks. We share strategies. We make sure no company ever again thinks they can treat human beings as disposable resources. The revolution wasn't over. It was evolving, and we were ready for whatever came next. The federal courthouse in Denver had never seen crowds like this. Thousands of workers, not just from Redwood, but from across corporate America, holding signs. Justice for workers, and the truth always wins. They'd come to witness the final act of our revolution. Mark Hollister's trial had lasted 3 weeks. I'd testified for 2 days, laying out everything: the layoff list, the stock manipulation, the embezzlement. But the prosecution's star witness wasn't me. It was Mark's own hubris, captured in hundreds of emails and recordings where he'd bragged about his schemes, confident he was untouchable. The verdict came on a Tuesday morning in September. Guilty on all counts. 27 charges including wire fraud, embezzlement, conspiracy, and securities fraud. The judge sentenced him to 15 years in federal prison and ordered him to pay $30 million in restitution. As they led Mark away in handcuffs, he turned to look at me. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something I hadn't expected: understanding. He finally understood that power built on fear and greed was no power at all. It was a house of cards, and I'd been the wind that knocked it down. Patricia Williams pled guilty to lesser charges and received 5 years. The entire C-suite was either imprisoned, fined, or permanently barred from serving as corporate officers. Redwood Dynamics itself was restructured, with employees receiving significant equity stakes and board representation. But the real victory wasn't in the courtroom. It was in what happened next. The Redwood Revolution became a movement. Workers across the country, inspired by what we'd done, began organizing, not traditional unions, but networks of truth-tellers, evidence gatherers, corporate accountability warriors. In 6 months, 17 major corporations faced similar reckonings. Executive compensation packages were slashed, worker protections were strengthened. The balance of power, for the first time in decades, shifted. Congress passed the Corporate Accountability Act of 2026, making it easier for whistleblowers to expose corruption without fear of retaliation. They called it Clare's Law, which felt surreal every time I heard it. I started a consultancy, not for corporations, but for employees, teaching them how to document abuse, how to organize safely, how to use truth as a weapon against corporate tyranny. Rachel joined me as a partner. Even Ethan, finally free from his corporate Stockholm syndrome, came aboard as our technical director. 1 year after that first leak, I stood in my new office, nothing fancy, just a converted warehouse where we trained the next generation of corporate justice warriors. On the wall hung a framed printout of that original layoff list, a reminder of where this all started. A young woman, fresh out of college, sat across from me. She discovered her company was dumping toxic waste while publicly claiming environmental responsibility. She was scared, uncertain, holding evidence that could destroy her career or save countless lives. "What you did," she said, "destroying your whole life to expose the truth, was it worth it?" I thought about the question. My old life was gone, the stable job, the predictable path, the comfortable anonymity. I'd been sued, threatened, investigated, and vilified. But I'd also been vindicated, celebrated, and most importantly, effective. "I didn't destroy my life," I told her. "I destroyed the lie I was living. There's a difference." She nodded, understanding dawning in her eyes. Another soldier in our quiet revolution. That night, I sat alone in my apartment, a different one now, smaller but somehow more honest. The August 2025 layoff list had been meant to destroy 143 lives. Instead, it had transformed thousands. The document meant to preserve corporate power had become the catalyst for its dismantling. My phone buzzed with messages from workers around the world. A textile worker in Bangladesh who'd exposed unsafe conditions. A banker in London who'd revealed money laundering. A teacher in Texas who documented fund embezzlement. All inspired by what we'd done. All carrying the revolution forward. I opened my laptop and looked at the email that had started it all. That misdirected message containing the layoff list. Such a small mistake, such massive consequences. Mark had thought he was planning tactical terminations. He'd actually planned his own destruction and the transformation of corporate America. The irony wasn't lost on me. In trying to secretly eliminate workers they saw as expendable, they'd revealed the truth. It was executives like Mark who were truly redundant. The company ran better without them. The world ran better without their greed. I closed the laptop and looked out at the Denver skyline. Somewhere out there, in countless offices, workers were no longer silent. They were watching, documenting, organizing. The powerful could no longer operate in shadow because we'd learned to shine lights into every dark corner. The August 2025 layoff list was supposed to be a corporate secret that would quietly destroy lives. Instead, it became a battle cry that changed everything. Mark Hollister thought he was untouchable. He thought wrong. They all thought wrong. And me? Claire Donovan, former HR specialist, current revolutionary? I'd learned the most important lesson of all. Sometimes the greatest act of loyalty to your colleagues, to justice, to your own integrity, is betrayal of a corrupt system. Sometimes you have to burn it all down to build something better. The revolution wasn't over. It would never really be over as long as greed existed, as long as power was abused, as long as workers were seen as expendable. But now they knew we were watching. Now they knew we would fight back. Now they knew that their secrets weren't safe. Their crimes wouldn't stay hidden. Their power wasn't absolute. And that knowledge, that fear they now carried, the same fear they'd once instilled in us, that was the real victory. I smiled, thinking about Mark in his federal cell, probably calculating how many years until parole. He'd spent so much time planning other people's endings, he never saw his own coming. Thank you so much for listening to this story of corporate justice and revenge. I hope Claire's journey resonated with you and reminded you that even in the face of overwhelming corporate power, truth and solidarity can prevail. Where are you listening to this story from? Drop a comment below. I'd love to know if you're tuning in from your office, during your commute, or perhaps plotting your own corporate revolution. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more stories of justice and transformation. And share your thoughts about Claire's actions. Was she a hero or a criminal? What would you have done in her position? Let's discuss in the comments below.